Well, I think we'll get started. We are going to videotape for our website, so we'll ask everyone that is going to speak to come up here and speak at the podium so that we can record it and keep some notes on our website. And thank you, Ms. Seymour, for having us here at Mount Carmel. We appreciate the space to talk about PET. So I'm Lynn Cole. I'm the current chair of the PET board, and we want to thank you for coming to learn about our Classroom Impact Grants, formerly mini grants. And I'll start with introducing a few of the folks in the room. Lynn Murray is our executive director, who is the person that is responsible for pulling us all together today. We have a number of folks from the PET board, including Wes Farnan, Don Remlard, Sissy Bunch, Sherry McKinley, and we have from the district office, Pam Nail, who will be speaking to us in a moment, Karen Stroud, and Nell Boggs. So appreciate everyone being here. Many people ask us, what is the PET? What is PET? What do we do? We are a board that supports, as a foundation that supports the students and the teachers in Douglas County schools. We're made up of educators, former educators, business executives, and parents throughout the county. And what we really aim to do in our Classroom Impact Grants is to allow teachers who have amazing ideas to bring those ideas to life through impact grants that we allow teachers to apply for and are granted in the spring. Today you'll hear from a number of those teachers that have had Classroom Impact Grants in the past. They'll share some of the things that they've done and provide tips on what you can do to make a great PET Impact Grant in the future. And I'd like to just say that, for many of us, we love to hear the stories of how these impact grants are having on our students. For myself, one of my kids came home this year and said, "Gosh, I'm so excited we're going to get to work on a project this year that was a PET mini grant from last year." And so Ms. Pultzer's here to explain the PET grant that's ongoing here at Chapel Hill Middle School. So with that, I'd like to introduce Pam Nail from the county office to give a few remarks about the district. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of Dr. Pritz just to thank you for being here and just for expressing an interest in considering applying for one of the impact grants. I would have called it mini grants just because that's what I've known it for. I think about PET and just one day I aspire to be like the people who serve on the PET board that just give of their time and energy, and I think they do it because most of them have been in your shoes before and they know what it is to be a teacher and to want to do something and not have the resources. And so, this is a way for them to show their appreciation to you, to give of their time to plan for activities like this. And we all know that just like with projects in our house or activities that we want to do with our families, there's usually materials or an associated cost with that. And so that's the same thing within teachers in their classrooms. So I just hope that you'll hear what you hear today and that will encourage you to apply for one of the grants, and look forward to seeing, like Lynn said, there's really some cool stories, things that kids have been able to be exposed to or have access to that they might not would have been able to if it hadn't been for the grants. So we just appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the PET board for the opportunity. So, and I'm excited to hear Coach Epstein sing when he does his project. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. We appreciate having you with us. Marion and Bill Dolan with Value Teachers are sponsoring today's workshop. I think this is the third year in a row that they've sponsored it. And Marion Dolan is, of course, retired from the Douglas County school system, and she's on our board, and we appreciate that. And they send their greetings. They are actually at a Value Teachers conference right now in Florida, so that's why they're not with us. But they're offering some door prizes, and I'm going to make you work for them by answering a few questions about PET. So even though you're teachers and you stress to your children, raise your hands, feel free to yell out the answers. Board members, you can't play. And I'm actually going to start with a question before I introduce Nick Epstein because it has to do with Teachers of the Year. How much money has PET awarded to Teachers of the Year since 1996? That's 20 years of honorariums to each Teacher of the Year, not just the top one or the top three. Take a guess.
90,000, I don't
The
know.
little high, keep guessing. Our administrators didn't do too great on these questions either. 57,100. I've got a door prize for you because you tried. I appreciate that. Speaking of those Teachers of the Year, it's my pleasure to ask, I was about to skip you, Thomas, but I see you came in. Let me go ahead and start with Nick Epstein so it complements my question I just had here. Nick is a successful grant writer. He's from Dorset Shoals Elementary School, and he's also the Teacher of the Year for the elementary schools in Douglas County. So join me in welcoming Nick Epstein.
Thank you, Ms. Murray, and everyone from the PET Board for having us here today. Yes, ma'am. My PET grant was actually written for these. These are speed stacks, and I was actually talking with Miss Lynn Cole a second ago. These are actually something that we use in our PE program all the time. A lot of people would actually use red Solo cups or plastic cups in place of these, but these are obviously the much nicer version, and that comes with a cost. So when I applied for my PET grant last year, that was actually to cover the cost of these speed stacks and bring them to our PE program. So this one stack alone is about $20, which kind of seems crazy that something this simple would be that expensive. But to bring a set to a gym class like mine, where you need 30 sets for each kid in the class, it's actually a lot more expensive. So my PET grant was written for the amount of $415, and that was what allowed us to be able to purchase speed stacks for every kid in the program. And you're good.
The PowerPoint went to something that my teacher laptop does not do. We've lost our source.
That's okay. That's no big deal. Benefits of the Speed Stack program for PE. It serves a large number of students. It's versatile. It stimulates brain activity through bilateral transfer, which also helps with higher order thinking skills. It's an innovative activity for physical education, so we're not just rolling the ball out. It also addressed our school improvement plan. These incorporate mathematics skills. It also incorporates STEM activities with engineering, and the Speed Stacks program basically just added something new that was missing from my PE program. So, that's okay. So this is a picture of our students working with the Speed Stacks, and this is one of the creations that they came up with during a centers type activity. Go ahead, and you can go a couple more. Right there. Okay, so my advice to you, if you were applying for a PET grant, would just be to look at these three different focus points. Is it impactful? Is it innovative? And is it missing from your program? Obviously, you don't want something to apply for that you already have. You want to bring something new to your program. Go ahead. So with the impact, you can see these pictures here. The picture on the left is actually our Roadrunners team at the school. So we've incorporated these speed stacks for different games during Roadrunners practice. That also allows this PET grant to be versatile. We're not just using it in our classes, but we're also using it in after-school activities. I can use it with small groups and centers, which you don't normally hear those words in PE, but this equipment allows me to do that. Go ahead. And you also want to ask yourself, is your PET grant innovative? So these help like I said, with STEM activities. I also gave students a challenge of putting together their best version of a castle. So they created those things on their own, and the picture on the left is another STEM activity where they're creating their version of a skyscraper. So you want to look at different ways that you can use the program or the equipment that you're writing to buy. Go ahead. And then the last focus point is it missing from your program? So as I mentioned at the beginning, these were $415, not something that I would just go out and buy for my own PE budget. It was something that I would have either had to save for or apply for with this PET grant, and that's the reason that we were able to purchase these. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about our PET grant application? Our school's been very successful, and we're also very grateful for the PET program, and I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Nick. And in just a few moments, we'll have a speed stack sport pack stacking competition, right? Did I say that right? I would now like to introduce Thomas Bruno. Thomas, if you'll come on up. He is currently assistant principal at Arbor Station Elementary School, but last year he was a teacher at Bill Arp Elementary and wrote a successful grant. So, I'm sorry, South Douglas Elementary. And he's going to talk a little bit about that particular grant.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the PET board. I mean, this year would be the second year that I got a grant. And if I can write one, anybody can write it. So it's really easy to do, and it doesn't take long. I just wanted to get across maybe 3 or 4 pointers that I try to figure out writing the grants from year to year. Last year when we had our freeze, it was around this time last year when we were out for a while, so I was sitting there watching Sports Center. I said, I think I'm going to write a few of these grants. So I actually wrote 4 grants that day. So my first advice to you, write more than one. Because I wrote 4 and I wound up, the 2 I thought I was going to get, I didn't get. And the 2 I kind of did it, I did it at the last minute there. I got those 2 grants. And I believe I got those grants. The 2 I didn't get, one was for a science club, which I thought I had gotten it the year before. And the second one, I had a sports club at South Douglas, and I wrote that grant. I didn't get that grant. So I had 2 other grants I wrote. I wrote one, and I don't know, this is the picture. We had a Gettysburg Address contest at South Douglas. So the kids learned portions of the Gettysburg Address, and we had a contest. That's one couple of the kids that they just memorized portions. And we actually had a kid that was he was a special needs kid. He got up there. First time he'd ever done anything like this, and got up there. I mean, his parents were crying. They couldn't believe that kid got up there and did that. So the first advice would be write more than one. The second is to come up with an original idea. I thought that was a pretty original idea. So I think the PET grant came to me because it was kind of, like you were talking about, an innovative idea. It's an original idea. Another reason I think I got that grant and the one other is I itemized the budget. When I made the budget for the sports club, I just put, supplies. Science, the same thing. I put science supplies, and I put $500. I didn't itemize. For this one and the other one I did, I have a copy of the grant that I wrote, one of the successful ones. I put exactly what I was going to use the money for. So I had 6 or 7 items, and I itemized it. So I think that's what they're looking for. They've never told me that, but I think I kind of figured it out. Yeah, maybe they'll say that. And the fourth piece of advice I would have is when you're writing your grant, try to bring some personal stories into it. Try to not make it, you don't want to make it dry. You want to try to bring some personal stories into it. Like here, when I wrote this grant, I had a little boy. He had just lost his brother in an automobile accident. Well, I said, this little boy started reading about Abraham Lincoln and found out Abraham Lincoln had lost members of his family. So he identified with it, and I wrote that in the grant. So just those 4 pieces of advice: write more than one, have a unique idea, itemize your budget, and try to bring personal stories into your application. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions. Okay. And I'll go ahead, I have a copy of, I made a copy of the grant that, and I'll just leave it on the table here.
Thank you, Thomas. We appreciate that. I love hearing about these. All right, before we move on, I'm going to give you a chance to win another gift card, compliments of Value Teachers. PET was founded in 1993, and we don't have a complete awards record for all of PET's years, for PET's earliest years. But does anyone know how much PET has awarded in classroom impact grants in the past decade? And last year, we awarded just over 17,000, well, for this current year, just over 17,000, and the prior year was just over 18,000. And we don't know our award amount yet. We'll be talking about that at the January board meeting. So any takers on how much PET's awarded in a decade? 150,000. Great guess, 126,500. So that's a very good guess, it certainly is. And now we're going to introduce Carrie Harbin. She's the media specialist at Lithia Springs Elementary School, and her grant is just a really, really special one. Well, they all are, but it's about the Little Free Library for children in her community.
Okay, everybody, good afternoon. So this afternoon, I'm going to admit that I am a thief and I love to spend money, but I'm a really nice thief because I'm a stealer of ideas. I find something good and I steal it for myself. And I've been the media specialist at Lithia Springs Elementary School for about 10 years. This is my 10th year, and I always have a very long list of things that I want. So to get what I want and implement my ideas, I have to be creative. So I often look for grants that I can write and just give it a try. So I wrote my first PET grant, I think it was in 2008 when I wanted to start a photography club at my school, and I based it off of some of the projects I had done at the University of West Georgia in grad school. I just kind of stole my teachers' ideas and used them for my own. And I was really surprised once I started filling out the application how simple it is. It's not very lengthy. They're not looking for, a 10-page essay. It's really just about 1 to 2 pages and, just kind of keeping it simple. So I was really surprised when I received that grant. I was very excited that, and surprised nobody had taken the time to do it before at my school. So I asked my principal if I could just write it for the whole $1,000, and he said sure, since nobody else was, because at your school, you can only submit one $1,000 idea. If other people are wanting to apply, then it can only be $500. So I did that, and my first tip after winning that grant was I thought that I got it because it kind of had sort of a catchy name, and maybe it caught their attention. I wanted the PET board to wanted to get their attention. So that was my first tip, to think of a catchy name. And the second thing I always make sure to do, this is my second tip, is to make sure that you have someone read over what you want to submit. And I usually give it to my principal. He's happy to kind of proof it for me and make sure I didn't make any errors and give me suggestions and feedback. So make sure you have somebody look it over before you submit it. Another PET grant that I applied for was to implement a summer mobile library, and this would benefit the students in our community that live in mobile home parks, but it wasn't just limited to them. Anybody could come to the summer mobile library, and I didn't exclude kids who actually weren't enrolled at my school. We had a couple of kids that came from Brighton and other kids that I just didn't recognize, but I didn't tell them no, that they couldn't get the books. I got that idea from a children's literature conference that I had attended, and my friend who works in Coweta County, who's a media specialist, she tried it after the conference that summer, and she kind of gave me some tips about how it went over there. So I used those tips that she gave me and her ideas and wrote the grant, and was very excited when we received it. I believe that it made a positive experience on our kids because they were able to keep checking out books over the summer. Even though the public library has programs, a lot of our kids in our area may only have one vehicle in their family, and their one of the parents takes it to work, so they're at home the whole time. So we visited the mobile home parks 8 times throughout the summer. Sorry, 4 times throughout the summer, 2 times a month, and let them borrow and exchange books on the honor system. And I collected them back the first 2 months of school. I probably will get a book next week that the kids find under their bed somewhere. But it's really, not about actually maybe getting the books back. I'm happy if they are reading them. And I think one of the reasons I received that grant, because it was sort of an innovative idea that had not been implemented before, and it was extremely beneficial to the students that, were impacted by it. My third tip is to consider whether it is innovative and will it increase students' success and impact student achievement. Last year, I got another grand idea from the same conference that I go to every year, and that was for a little free library. And I thought about how students would benefit from having access to books through this honor system. Like I said, even though the public library is right around the corner from my school, some of them owe lots of fines and can't check out books anymore. And, I kind of look past that. And also some of them, we have a large ESOL population. About 40% of our kids are served through ESOL. We have 3 full-time ESOL teachers. So some of our parents are probably afraid to go up to the public library because they do not speak English very well and they do not want to apply for a card. So we have a couple of programs at our school that reach out to our parents, and we have translators that will explain things to them. So next month, I hope to begin my Little Free Library officially, and at the February meeting, I'll tell our Hispanic parents all about it, and hopefully our Little Free Library will take off. And just taking a small amount of time to write your grant, I believe, has helped my school earn about $2,500 through the PET board. So I'm really, thankful for that. And I am looking for my next great idea to submit next month. And I am willing to help any of you write your grants. If you want to just email me, Kerry, KERRY.HARBIN. I'm happy to look over what you want to submit to them, and I promise I won't steal your good idea and submit it for myself. Thank you. Oh, here's a couple pictures of the Summer Mobile Library, and I'll show you how, when I typed up the grant, because it's kind of internet-based now, I just made sure to type it all in Microsoft Word and get my ideas out. I forgot to flip the pictures around when I saved them off my computer at school, but there's a kid with a bunch of loot from the Summer Mobile Library. But when you go to the website, you can just copy and paste what you typed in your Word document. Those are all such sweet kids that I know were so excited to be able to come and borrow books all summer long, and it kept them reading and active.
Thank you, Carrie. We appreciate that. Feel free to keep on flipping through. Carrie invited me to one of the summer mobile libraries, and I was so pleased because PET loves to see grants in action. So if you receive one, let us know how it's going. We share that with our donors, with our board. We put it on our Facebook. And actually, as I was telling some of the others who've shared information about their PET grants, we get more likes on that than anything else. So next, we're going to ask Patty Polzer to come up and talk about a grant that she wrote for Chapel Hill Middle School, and I believe you've written a number of successful ones through the years.
I like all the smiling faces of the kids. You can keep those coming. Yes, I have. PET has been very, very good to me over the years. In the past 10 or so years, I have written and received several very generous grants provided by the Public Education Trust, and really I think they've helped me be a better teacher. I have written and received grants for subscriptions to magazines such as USA Studies Weekly to supplement my 5th grade social studies curriculum when I was teaching 5th grade. I wrote, with the help of a colleague, an IXL math grant to supplement my 3rd graders when I taught 3rd grade, and many other software programs over the years. which you definitely need to get approved, because once you get those software programs, they have to be installed. So I guess you have to send them to Darian Caruth.
By January 27th.
Okay, and that's a very important step, because if you write a grant for a piece of software, if it isn't compatible with our system, it becomes a problem. So you want to definitely ask permission to get those grants. Most recently, I've written my subscription to Scholastic Storyworks magazine to supplement my 6th grade language arts classroom as I've moved into the middle school arena, and wrote that grant, and it's helping my 6th graders along with the other 6th grade classes at Chapel Hill Middle School. I think really that these grants are helping me to be a more creative teacher, to come up with some interesting and new ways to teach and to supplement my classroom. Receiving a PET Classroom grant, impact grant, is not something to take lightly. To me, it's like Christmas, really, when a committee arrives and presents your award certificates. Miss Bunch came last year, and we didn't know you were coming. So when we were called to a classroom and we received this award, and they hand you a very nice little certificate, and I have several from when I worked at Dorset Shoals, and they're really nice to keep and to have and to really celebrate. So when that committee arrives, it's very exciting. They put on a wonderful ceremony to also provide some snacks and some treats, and we get to be awarded these grants at a big event later on in the year. So I think a little effort pays off really well. And I, for one, will be penning my 2016-2017 grant very soon. So how do I decide what to write my grant for? Well, we teachers, as we've already heard, are very good thieves, and we also know that everything has already been invented, so we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and spend a lot of time searching on the internet for things to use in our classroom, to supplement, to play around with. And oftentimes we come across these wonderful, great ideas because we know somebody else has already come up with it. And we're notorious for going in there and taking these ideas. But we often find that costs a lot of money that we don't have. So a subscription, access to the next level, or that great lesson or worksheet that we can't download or access without a paid subscription. It happens all the time. We join for 30 or 60 days, and then poof, it's taken away from us. Those are the programs you want to write your PET grants for. Those are the ones that really help in your classroom. These are programs that you can use to remediate those kids that are struggling. You can help those students that need a little bit of a higher level thinking, so that you can work with them a little bit more, give them something that they can work on by themselves. I just say dream big. Find something that appeals to you. Write the grant. The best advice I can give you about writing the grant is to fill out the application completely. I've written many, many over the years, some that have been successful, some not, and I know why, because I didn't put all that detail into it. So determine how the impact grant will improve your students' performance. Put that in your grant. Enrich your students. Whatever it's going to do to your classroom, add that information so that the committee will know how that's going to impact your classroom. The world is our oyster. I mean, it's everything we want is out there. We just need to find a way to get it. So find something that really, really works. My impact grant was for Storyworks magazine, and it is a magazine that comes out several times a year, and I use it to supplement my teaching. It is curriculum aligned, and I use the magazine. I wrote these subscriptions so that several classrooms get full class sets, so every student has their own magazine, and we read generally the informational texts. Last text we read was about Alcatraz and the new information that they found out about Alcatraz, which was interesting because on CNN they were also doing something about this, the new information they found about Alcatraz. So we started small, talking about this informational text and comparing it and contrasting it to some poetry and things like that, but it went wild. We started having kids bringing in YouTube videos, asking questions about the Alcatraz and where it was and what it looked like, and lots of great questions. Well, how did they float from the land to the shore? And it really moved into a lot bigger area than I had even expected. So Storyworks has been wonderful in my classroom. I will be writing another grant for Storyworks, and hopefully we'll have a subscription again next year, because the supplemental materials are just fantastic, and I like to really use them in my classroom to supplement whatever it is I'm teaching. So dream big. You're not going to get it unless you ask for it, and I say go for it. Do all that you can to get some of that extra money in your classroom. So thank you, Pat. You guys have been very good to me.
Thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. I just love hearing about how these grants are used. It's so interesting. Okay, quick door prize once again. Here's the question. Online scholarship applications opened up yesterday. We're awarding, we know, $15,000 this year. We're working with some donors at present that will hopefully bring up that scholarship amount to around $9,000 for the year. But does anyone know how much PET has awarded in scholarships since 2000? You're close, but bring it down a little bit. 107,800. So since 2000, and we're going up every year, and that's the exciting thing. We keep on increasing our award amounts. I want you to hear now from a couple of our board members who read the grant applications. You've heard from your peers, and now I think it'll be great for you to hear from the readers. What are they looking for? What resonates positively with them? I'm going to introduce both of you at once. I don't know if you're coming up at the same time, but Sissy Bunch and Sherry McKinley. Sissy retired from teaching with 30 years experience and retired from Mount Carmel. She's come home. And Sherry retired with 34 years of teaching, and you were at Mount Carmel for a while and actually retired from South Douglas. And they're on the board, and they have such great insight about teachers because that was their profession. They can tell us what's going on in classrooms, what your needs are, that sort of thing, and they stay in touch with many of their teaching friends. So I want to ask you both to come on up and just tell a little bit about what you're looking for when you read these applications.
Y'all did a great job of doing what we're supposed to do right now. But the main thing that I would say, be creative. We need to know who you're going to serve, how many, and if you are a classroom teacher and you can get your team involved, that's wonderful. If you are a special education teacher, we realize that you're not going to impact as many children, but it's still very important. If you can find, we would like for you to try to find a source other than us to begin with, and we'll go from there. Also, the subscriptions, what's going to happen if we don't fund it the next year? We would like to know that. And we'd also like to know if it's going to complement the school improvement plan, your school improvement plan. And my pet peeve is the itemizing. I want to see it itemized, and instead of just $500 for books, that's not good enough. And also think about your the money that you're going to have to spend for shipping and things like that. That's important. And as Patty said, and I had forgotten about this, was about the software that you need to check out with your, what are the technology people at the Board of Education. And also, when you are doing something like books or whatever, talk to your librarian first and see if they have money that can go to that can go for that, or your PE teacher, because there are other sources before you come to us with that. But creativity and itemization, that's the most important to me. Sure.
I think we've covered just about everything, but I was just going to see if there, in just a few minutes, if there are any questions that we could answer. If we can't answer them, we've got a lot of people in here that read grants as well that we can probably get answered for you. But just to kind of reiterate what Sissy was saying is sometimes we'll get a grant and it won't have the name of the school. We're looking for everything to be filled out correctly on this paperwork. Unfortunately, we don't have enough money to fund all of the applications, but we do as many as we can. So we have to have a process of weeding out, some of the applications. And if you, and I know it's easy to forget, but if you leave something out, then we're going to say, well, we're going to have to put this one to the side maybe. Creativity in the title is good, but, your description of what you're going to do with the money is very, very important. So we look to see how you're going to do that, how you're going to follow up with Carrie going, out to the mobile home parks and of course, taking the pictures. That lets us know that she's put the money that we gave her to good use. And also, I was just going to add that it appears that applying for PET funding and being granted that can further your career, because after only 2 years of applying for grants, Thomas Bruno is now assistant principal at Arbor Station. So there's another reason to apply if you're wanting to be an assistant principal. Can't imagine why. And then just one other thing, I know, as Lynn was saying, that as a classroom teacher, I spent a lot of money, when I was in the classroom. So we are aware of that, and we want to help you any way that we can. So, just keep applying. Just because you don't get it this year, don't get discouraged. That doesn't mean you're not going to get it. And that also brought up one other thing I thought about while we were talking. Did anyone mention the payroll deduction that the teachers can do? And that kind of helps us to get even more money. You can actually donate from your, from your check every month if you would like to. What is the amount we usually encourage?
It's been over 8,000 in past years and just over 7,000.
So if you can encourage your coworkers, to do that, that gives us more money to give to you. So were there any other questions that someone could answer for anybody?
So a question I commonly get is, can my school submit multiple grant requests? And are there any restrictions on what my team or my school can do? And I heard you speak about a thought of we could only submit one. So if you could speak to that, that'd be.
You can do one $1,000 grant for your school, but multiple people could do $500 grants, but only one $1,000 grant.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
That's a local
School decision.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you repeat that for the video, please?
Yes, they were thinking that you could only apply for a certain amount from your school, but as Karen was saying, that is a local school decision. There is no limit on how many grants that your school can apply for.
And also, we can see the ones that participate, like some will have as many as 10, and then some won't have any. And so it doesn't matter. If it's good, it's going to go. Anybody else?
The limit, what is the limit? Is it 1,000 or is it 1,500 or?
As it's 500 for a single teacher, 1,000 for a team, or like if it's your librarian, you have more children that are impacted. So it's good, but it's just a single teacher. It's 500. Is that correct? Is that you're with that?
What if you have a club that serves a whole, like a STEM program at Lithia High?
That would be 1,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, lady. Those ladies have spent many hours and many years in service to PET, and we're grateful for them. The next individual really needs no introduction. It's Karen Stroud. She's Director of Community Relations for the school system, and Karen has worked closely with PET for 18 years. Am I right, Karen? 20 years, she's telling me. So she has quite a history with PET and has put a lot of time and effort and heart and soul into it.
Thank you. This is my 4th school district. I'm now my 8th superintendent. So life gives you a lot of opportunities. And one of the nicest opportunities that has ever been afforded to me is working with our Public Education Trust Board over the years, and we have many long-serving members. I guess when I look around the room and think about this now, I guess I'm the one who's read more pet grants than anybody else. So we really hope that you'll take all this information to heart. And, not knowing what everybody else was saying, I'm just going to reiterate a little bit of what's been said because that's what I had on my list. You've already heard be creative, and that's very, very important. Don't just think, well, last year so-and-so did that and they got a grant, so I'm going to apply for the same exact thing. And think about if you're going to do a subscription of some type, that's great, but how are you going to use that creatively? And indeed, how are you going to fund it later if there's no pet funding available? So think about that. And also, what makes your project unique? What is it about your project that's going to touch the heart and the education sense of the readers? So make sure that you think about what is it about this grant that's going to help the students that I interact with and makes my project really seem special and kind of rise above some of the others. You've also heard this mentioned, be financially sound. I can't tell you how many grants applications we've seen over the years where they didn't have a budget or they had a Thomas budget, $500, no information. Sometimes we're very stunned by the shipping cost. And I just wonder sometimes if people have not looked around to see where else they could purchase that. We are in Metro Atlanta, and there should be some other options available to you than paying like 25% shipping costs. There should be something you could do. Make sure that budget is definitely detailed. Be open to partnering, whether it's partnering within your school, between the media center and the PE program, however it uniquely works for you to better the education of your students. Think about partnerships that are a little unusual. If you're in a situation where, for example, you're Chapel Hill High School and Holly Springs Elementary, think about a way to go across that curriculum that could benefit students in both schools. So whatever your school is, and maybe you're here at this school and you're thinking, well, gosh, that didn't work, we're just like here. There's schools not too far away from you that you might could partner and do something kind of unique with a partnership that way. Be clear. Sometimes we read those applications, we go, what is it they want to do again? I'm not really sure what they want. So be very clear, state what it is you want to do and how it will make a difference. You're much more likely to get funding that way. Be on time. I can't tell you how many applications over the years we've seen that came in after the deadline. They were great applications. But because of the volume that we receive, they just can't be considered if they're not there on time. Now that it's online, it should be a lot easier for you. And like one of our other people who gave advice, go ahead and do that in a Word document so you can have that all done and then copy it and paste it in so that you don't lose one little power blip. And you don't really have much of a backup if you're doing it online sometimes. So just make sure that you've done that in such a way that you haven't lost it. The question that came up a few minutes ago, different school administrators have different ideas about how they want these grants to go. Maybe they don't want to be overwhelmed by them. I'm not really sure. But if you know that someone else has already applied for a certain grant at your school, but you really think you have a viable grant, stand up for yourself and say, would you please consider letting me submit this? You know, it won't take anything away from the other grant. Just please let me submit this. And you might mention to them, you know, not all schools have a limit or a cap, and just make sure that they have a full understanding of that, because we've had a lot of personnel changing over the years, so maybe they don't realize that there's really not a restriction on that. So talk to your principal, and every application does require the principal's consent. So if your principal doesn't consent, I'm sorry, but try something else. You know, don't give up. And principals are just like anybody else. You might, if you can win over your principal, then you can probably win over the pet board. So be thinking about that too. So I just want to say thank you for all that you do. I know that I've seen a lot of creative work come through in these 20 years, and it's really been a great experience.
Thank you, Karen. Carrie, would you mind just clicking on the grants tab? One more gift card. Who knows how much PET has given collectively in the past 20 years? That's classroom impact grants, scholarships, teacher and counselor of the year honorariums, and occasional, if you'll click in the next one, and occasional restricted grants. Anybody got an idea? You know guessing works out well for you.
250, 250,000.
Great, just over 300,000. So very good. This has your name on it. I am going to tell you in about 3 sentences, we had promised to keep this around an hour, about where gifts to PET come from. In a nutshell, they come from individuals like you. Our faculty and staff this past calendar year gave almost $8,000, mostly through payroll deduction. I know some of you here have given, and I want to thank you. That is great. Support from within its own ranks is critical for the success of a foundation. When I write grants, I'm asked, what's going on internally, who's giving, and that includes our board. And our board was 100% last year. Believe me, Lynn Cole works very hard to make sure that happens, and I know that we're going to be 100% again this year in giving. So thank you. I don't know if I think we mentioned that number, but I wasn't at the microphone. Your gifts last calendar year were almost $8,000. There are forms. I wouldn't be me if I didn't show up without forms to give. If you'd like to give, the forms will accommodate cash, check, or payroll deduction gifts, and if you want to give by credit card, you can do that online on our website here safely through PayPal. We also ask local businesses to contribute. Something interesting we're going to do this year, for $500, a company, a club, a family, any group can name a Classroom Impact Grant. We are going to offer a Denice Companies Classroom Impact Grant and a Jeff Field and Associates Classroom Impact Grant. And I've got a meeting tomorrow with the CEO, so hopefully we'll be adding some more of those on. So keep that in mind. That's not just a business thing. That's if you want to honor a loved one. Or, like I said, if you're a part of a civic group or a club or a Sunday school class or something like that. Naming opportunities are not as hard as people think. $500 will do it. And the same is true for scholarship support if you'd like a naming op for scholarship support. We solicit gifts from private foundations. One of those is the John and Mary Franklin Foundation. We received $5,000 for assisted technology for this current year. We've asked them for $10,000. So hopefully we'll have success there. But we take Classroom Impact Grant funds very seriously. That is our number one challenge. We know that you all put so much out of your own pockets into your classrooms and what you do, and we thank you for that, and we want to walk alongside you and help you so that you don't have to do so much personally. That's a great challenge for PET. All these board members here work hard for that. I also don't want to forget about our Teachers Pet Fun Run that's been chaired for 4 or 5 years by Don Remillard. You all may think he's a retired superintendent, but let me tell you, he's working hard for you still. He's chaired that and done a great job with it, and every board member here works so hard, and we recruited, I don't know if Coach Epstein knew that he was going to get pulled in, but he did all day at the fun run and the night before. So we appreciate all these people working hard to raise money for our teachers. We want to give back. Thank you for coming. I have some business cards on the table. I'll be around as long as you need me today to talk. Don't hesitate to call at any time during the application process or email, because we want you to be comfortable as you do this. But I thank you all for coming. I thank our speakers for being with us. It's been interesting and hopefully helpful. Please don't leave without some water and a big, big handful of cookies, okay? Thank you.